What's going on, guys? Good morning. Welcome back to United View. Welcome back to another edition of the Morning View. Yes, a brand new week is here. A big week for Manchester United. We've got FC Copenhagen tomorrow in the Champions League. In addition to that, we've got the Manchester Derby on Sunday at Old Trafford. So ahead of that, there's plenty to get into this morning as well. I'm going to be talking a little bit about Jadon Sancho, a possible Saudi January exit for him that Manchester United are looking to revive, with reports suggesting he's already finished. He's already done at Manchester United and he won't play again for the club. So we'll give you a bit of an update on that. Also, the latest when it comes to Ineos looking to, restructure things if and when their 25% acquisition of Manchester United is completed, with Paul Mitchell looking like a leading candidate to coming in some kind of yet-to-be-defined role, perhaps sporting director, football director. What does that mean for John Murtough? What is the latest regarding all of that? We'll give you some update regarding that too. And also, I did want to chat very briefly about a story that was making the rounds over the last few days regarding Graham Potter. Yes, that same Graham Potter, the one was at Chelsea last season, about him possibly being a replacement for Erik ten Hag. Oh, my goodness me, we've got plenty to get into, so be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe as well, bottom right hand corner. A reminder to everyone, there is going to be a press conference today. I believe it's at midday, 12 p.m, ahead of the Champions League clash against FC Copenhagen tomorrow. Erik ten Hag and a yet to be determined or announced Manchester United player will be speaking to the assembled media at Carrington. So I will be live probably at like 12:30, something like that, just after the press conference finishes. Sometimes those European presses can be a little bit longer because obviously you have the player in there as well. You sometimes have translation too, so sometimes it can take a little bit longer. So I'll be live for that later on today, as well as there'll be a preview as well. So there's plenty of content for you to consume today. But let's get into the stories. Let's start off talking about Jadon Sancho, because this was a story that's really it's a status update, I suppose, on Jadon Sancho, and the status is it's exactly the same at Manchester United, but maybe the new wrinkle to this story is that there's really no way back. And this was something that I was sort of speculating on a few days ago, or certainly last week, over the last couple of weeks. It comes from The Mirror, comes from Simon Mullock from The Mirror, who has written that Jadon Sancho is now finished at Manchester United, even if he swallows his pride by apologising to Erik ten Hag. Ten Hag feels that his relationship with Sancho is now beyond repair and that the club must negotiate an exit strategy for the player in January. Manchester United are hoping that a move to Saudi Arabia can be resurrected for Jadon Sancho after they failed where they moved to sell Sancho to Al Ettifaq by insisting that a loan deal included a £45 million obligation to buy. So this was something that I was kind of pondering on the other day. I can't remember which show it was. It might have been with KG, or it might have been during a full view or something like that. They all bleed into one. But my thought process was, all of the reports keep saying, well, if Jadon Sancho apologises, then he'd be welcomed back into the squad. It'd be forgotten, or, well, maybe not forgotten, but certainly he'd be available for selection once again, and they move on. And I did think to myself, when the reports of that came out, I went, I don't know if I buy that. Because when you look at the stretch of time that has surpassed at this point, when you look at that amount of time, you look at, how long has it been now? When was that? The end of September, I think it was. I mean, the last game he played, I think, was it technically in August? I mean, actually, I'm sitting at a computer and let's do this right now. So Man United or Arsenal versus Man United. Arsenal versus Man United was the 3rd of September, right? So now it's the 23rd of October. So we're talking about, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, something like that. I mean, it's such a long amount of time before any sense of an apology that even if there was this big dramatic U-turn, Jadon Sancho wakes up one morning like the Undertaker and sees, the error of his ways and goes, yeah, I'm sorry, I was wrong. I was massively in the wrong. I just didn't realise it at the time and this, that and the other. would Erik ten Hag go, cool, right, we'll get you back into the squad? I think at this point, too much has passed. The issue is too big, and realistically, if you're not going to apologise after a couple of days, or you're not going to apologise fairly immediately, then something really crazy. There's going to have to be some sort of euphoric eureka moment that's going to have taken place 7 to 8 weeks later, and I don't think that's going to be the case. So I would agree in the sense that his Manchester United career is done, which is a stark contrast to what we were saying in the real sort of immediate aftermath of it all. You say you're sorry, you get over it and get back in the team, and maybe your long-term future's up for question, certainly, but in the immediate future, you start playing and this, that, and the other. But of course, we all know how this one's played out, and it hasn't played out very well, I think, for everyone involved, realistically. And the best move for everyone is a move away in January. And, those reports say, Man United aren't going to really do some big moves in January. Well, I would point to this and say, well, why not then? Why not? If you're going to get rid of Jadon Sancho, it could be a loan move with an obligation to buy. But if you do have a loan with an obligation to buy, you would think Manchester United would get a replacement in. Now, I don't suggest that the replacement will be akin to the status of Jadon Sancho, and it won't be akin to the money that was spent on Jadon Sancho in the first place. We're not going to be spending 70 million in January. We're certainly not going to be signing people to contracts that are 300k plus a week. I don't see that happening. But if you get Jadon Sancho at least partially off the books, you would suspect there would be a replacement going in. That's the territory we're in at the moment when it comes to FFP, irrespective of whether Sir Jim Ratcliffe's got his feet under the table and making sporting changes by this point. You would think, and again, you would think, but this is Manchester United, but you would think that they would have a replacement lined up. And actually, this should give this whole situation, knowing that it's not going to be resolved, Sancho's going to be going, I would be working on it now. I'd be looking at it now, and maybe that's what the suggestion is that they're going to be doing. Get on the phone to those in Saudi to say, hey, Jadon Sancho, do you want to come back in for him? If Sancho doesn't want to go to Saudi, okay, get on the phone to those people around Europe. Who's interested? What are we looking at? And also start making and having those conversations with the replacement you want to bring in. Hey, I want to get this player in. I want to get that player in. So I think the January activity of Manchester United probably would depend on really what happens with Jadon Sancho and how good of a deal that United get. It's a difficult one from United in terms of negotiating leverage, because anyone going into that conversation knows exactly where Manchester United are. You've got a player that wants to leave, fallen out with the manager. He's on massive wages that people won't be able to afford in January, and he's also not played well for the better part of 2 years. United aren't really in a strong position in terms of getting a lot of money or getting a good deal there. So that's when, if it is John Murtough, or if it is someone else, like a Paul Mitchell, that's when they're going to have to earn their money and see what kind of deal they're going to get. But I wouldn't be shocked if Sancho goes in January. As far as going to a Saudi club, he turned it down in the summer. Look, his circumstances are far different at this point. In regards to Al Ettifaq, I did see a report, I believe it was yesterday, from, I think it was Ben Jacobs, who was talking about Jesse Lingard actually at Al Ettifaq, and suggesting that actually, despite him, he's been training with Al Ettifaq for quite a while, actually, several weeks at this point, that it wasn't look like he was going to be offered a contract by them because his financial demands were so high, his wages were so high that they would have to release 2 players or something to allow for Jesse Lingard to come in. Now, Jadon Sancho, you could argue, is more valuable. He's younger. He's better than Jesse Lingard. So maybe they will be willing to get rid of a couple of players to bring Jadon Sancho in as opposed to Jesse Lingard. I don't know. But we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see how that one plays out. Of course, if we get any more details, we'll discuss them in future editions of The Morning View or other videos just like it. Let's move on and talk about Paul Mitchell. And then it's been linked to Manchester United. Gosh, even before all of this Ineos 25% acquisition stuff, he'd been linked with Manchester United on and off for several years. Going to the Ralph Rangnick era of Rangnick being a consultant and Paul Mitchell coming in and what have you. But certainly since it's looked like Ineos are going to win this takeover race that's going to result in a 25% acquisition and seeming, expected control over sporting matters at Manchester United, the general theory is one of the first changes that Ineos would make, that Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Sir Dave Brailsford would make, would be bringing in Paul Mitchell. And this has kind of been supported by a report from Ben Jacobs, who has said that Paul Mitchell is a leading candidate to become Manchester United sporting director under Jim Ratcliffe, having first been approached in March. Long before talks advanced with the Glazers, Ineos looked at several candidates. Mitchell has also been considered for Nice before them. Mitchell wants to return to the Premier League and has been exploring options since last summer. Chelsea was also another role he was very interested in. Dan Ashworth is another name looked at and discussed by Ineos, but it's been made clear he's not looking to leave Newcastle. And funny, Dan Ashworth has been linked to United regarding this position, and Ineos making those changes a couple of times. And I'd have been really shocked if that one had any legs to it, because Newcastle clearly is a project that's only just starting. As a sporting director there, obviously they spent a lot in that first January transfer window, but they've really only scratched the surface of their potential spending power and their potential that the project has there. So I'd have been stunned if we managed to pull them away. It's obviously such an attractive proposition at the moment, Newcastle, with the current situation. Regarding Paul Mitchell, at this point I'd be quite surprised if he didn't come in, to be honest. Lives in Manchester as well. As I mentioned, been linked to the position several times. What that would mean about John Murtough, I think it's probably a safe bet that if indeed Sir Jim Ratcliffe, Ineos, Sir Dave Brailsford are overseeing sporting matters at the club and have expected sporting control, that's been written by the Financial Times, you would think that John Murtough most likely will be one of the first casualties involved in all of that. And I'm not going to cry too much of a river, as much as it's sad for anyone to lose their job. We can do better. We can do better than John Murtough. Is Paul Mitchell better? Yes. Is he the best in class? I mean, look, he's been successful where he's been, certainly, whether it was Spurs, or I mean, before that it was Southampton. And people go, oh, Southampton. But you have to remember, that was this Southampton under Mauricio Pochettino. And the relationship was so good that Daniel Levy brought them both to Spurs. And look, it fared very well in terms of the recruitment on not a massive budget, and the players that they brought in during that period of time, Heung-min and Son. I mean, look at the side that they built under Mauricio Pochettino there. It worked very, very well. Did well at Monaco, you know. I mean, you look at the team that they have now and how they're doing in the league right now, which is actually okay. Is a credit to him too. So look, certainly in terms of the more recent jobs he's had, he's done a fairly good job, and he's better than John Murtough in his current job. Now again, can he work in the structure of Manchester United? That's a whole different kettle of fish. That is a completely different kettle of fish, because as many people have pointed out, it's tough to be, negotiating. It's tough to be leading transfer deals when you're the Manchester United sporting director, because people assume you've got a lot of money. Our reputation when it comes to transfers is so in the mud, so in the mud. And that's what makes it difficult to not only buy players but also sell players. I think part of the real difference with Paul Mitchell, if he came in and we actually started to sell players for good amounts of money, and also when we brought players in, didn't put them on massive inflated contracts, I'd be like, oh, what a difference that is. So it looks like he could be the leading candidate to come in that. Again, they haven't really defined a role. We're guessing sporting director, football director. I mean, that's the current title held by John Murtough, is the football director, a director of football-esque kind of figure. So we'll wait and see. I mean, it's one of these stories whereby you go, cool, that's great, but the bigger story is still, the actual confirmation of the 25% acquisition. In addition to that, the effective sporting control. I know that people don't want to hear it, and when I was raising these questions last week, people said, why are you so anti-Sir Jim? Why are you so negative on this? And it's not even necessarily, again, being negative on Ineos or being negative on Sir Jim or anything like that. I just think that, and I mentioned this on Twitter the other day, that I'm not against having different people being in control of sporting decisions at Manchester United. Of course, that's a positive from where we've been. I'm not against Sir Jim Ratcliffe coming in, and if there's a roadmap to him being able to buy out the Glazers, I'm for it. I'm behind it, because I don't want the Glazers to have anything to do with Manchester United. But at the same time, and also, and actually this also needs pointing out, because this is something that people will say to you, what are you saying you're a better, so you're saying, it starts off with that, so you're saying you're a better businessman than Serge Ratcliffe. You don't think Serge Ratcliffe would have got involved in this without some assurances that he'd have sporting control? Of course, that's why he's got involved in this. And that's why there's been a delay to this too. It's because those finer details, those clauses, those bits and pieces that have to be written down in legalese, in black and white on paper, they need to be there. And he's not naive enough to think that they shouldn't be there and just assume that the Glazers will be honest. Yeah, you can have sporting control, wink wink. He's not dumb when it comes to that. So of course that's why they're trying to figure that out at the moment. But I just say, if you involve Joel Glazer, who is the largest majority shareholder at Manchester United, people will go, yeah, but when Ineos acquire it, he'll be the largest majority shareholder. Well, not when these things get ratified, because you'll have all of the Glazers voting on them, and combined, they will still be the majority shareholders on Manchester United, so they can approve or veto anything they want when it comes to this agreement. Therefore, if there's a clause in there that says that Ineos, they have complete sporting control, screw you, Joel Glazer, you can't do anything about it, is every Glazer going to vote on that? Are they comfortable? We would be naive to think that the Glazers would just be like, yeah, we're just going to have absolutely nothing to do with it and give ourselves no wiggle room, no veto power, no opportunity to overturn things. And I know people are pointing to these articles and say, yeah, but this article says they'd have sporting control, and effective sporting control. And again, effective. And again, I don't doubt that Serge Ratcliffe would go into it with the assumption that he'd have sporting control. I don't doubt that they are making sure that that's written down in black and white. And I hope it gets written down in black and white. I hope it gets written down that irrespective of what happens, they have the final say and there's no veto power. And Joel Glazer is just sat on there. It's a case of, they still control the commercial side, so it's good to know. They need to know certain things. Cool. Again, if that's how we end up, I can get behind that. But just paint me skeptical when it comes to that, because we have just seen no evidence of that across 20 years of them being willing to give up any semblance of control, or even when they do, without the smidge of wiggle room, without the ability to veto, without the ability just to be, let's just wriggle out of that. I just don't like that one. I'm going to have the final say. And until I see that, I'm just going to be like, I'll believe it when I see it. Remember all of those people in the first place, when it came to the takeover stuff, I'll believe it when I see it. It's the same principle. The Glazers aren't going to be involved in sporting matters. I'll believe it when I see it. Yeah? And when I see it, isn't articles. When I see it, it's actual. The proof will be firmly in the pudding when it comes to all that, certainly. So that's kind of where I sit on it at the moment. And people can say, that's really anti, Serge Ratcliffe. And I don't think it is. I don't think saying, I hope that he has sporting control, and I hope that there is a roadmap for them purchasing the club, or purchasing the majority and removing the Glazers from the club. I'm not sure how that's being anti-Serge Ratcliffe, but there you go. Finally, this is a strange story. And the only reason I wanted to bring this up, because I just really don't think there's any weight to it at all. So there's a story from Alan Nixon, and he's been a journalist for quite some time, saying that Graham Potter is a possible candidate for the Manchester United job if Serge Ratcliffe's team decide to get rid of Erik ten Hag. So Dave Brailsford is a fan and wanted him at Nice too. It's just bullshit. I don't really know any other way to describe it, but you've got all of these articles from credible people saying Erik ten Hag, irrespective of whether it was Ineos, irrespective if it was Sheikh Jassim, irrespective if there was no takeover, nothing at all, and the Glazers just stuck around going, we'll figure it out. Everyone, the general sentiment from every single person involved in this entire takeover race was that Erik ten Hag, his job is safe. So why would Ineos be like, actually, we'll decide to get rid of Erik ten Hag? Isn't that like the one thing that universally is agreed upon by all of these people involved in this, is that, no, we don't want to get rid of Erik ten Hag. He did a good job last season. There's been injuries this season, and all of the stuff that's been going on above probably hasn't helped things either. So the idea that they'd even consider getting rid of Erik ten Hag, I just don't see that. The Graham Potter thing as well. Haven't we seen this? Haven't we seen Graham Potter be employed by a club that's just undergone a radical transformation in terms of a takeover or new people running the sporting side of things, i.e. Todd Bowley, it didn't work out very well, did it? And that's not to say that Graham Potter's a bad coach. That's not to say that Graham Potter's a bad manager or anything like that. It was a very, 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 very difficult situation. Chelsea last season were an absolute mess with the amount of players they had there and this, that and the other. But also, there was a general feeling that maybe that step up right there was too big of a step up for him at that point in his career. He went from Brighton to Chelsea, and the step up was too much, particularly with the club that was going, with all the stuff that was going on in the club at that time. So why on earth then, logically, would we think that Graham Potter, who wasn't ready for that step then, would be ready to go to Manchester United? And also, I mean, the step up's even higher, the magnitude and the weight of it is even higher, and then on top of that, one of the key reasons why he didn't succeed at Chelsea is because the club was a mess in terms of recruitment, in terms of players in and out, in terms of they're trying to find their footing of what this new look Chelsea looked like. That is literally, you could switch out Chelsea and put in Manchester United, particularly with new people operating the club. Going, the club's a bit of a mess at the moment. Not really sure what's going on in terms of recruitment. The new people in control of Sporting Matters are trying to find their feet, just trying to figure out what's going on. New people are going in and out of the door at an executive level, which happened with Chelsea. They got rid of a few directors, Petr Cech and that left, and new people came in. I mean, it's the definition of insanity. I'll get it right next time. But a bigger club with more weight, with more expectation, with more media scrutiny. He was lucky. Quite frankly, the way that it worked out at Chelsea and the sheer lack of results that I think actually the media did not give him as hard of a time as maybe they would of other people. I felt like actually there was a lot of times where you're going, hey, like he ain't getting there's a lot of this media scrutiny that maybe other people would, that Erik ten Hag was at Manchester United. So for me, it's a nothing story. It's a nothing story. I don't see it, and I think it'd be a bad move by Manchester United. But there you go, guys. That's the news for you this morning. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Be sure to join me for the press conference later, and I'll speak to you again very soon. I'm out of there. Peace.